Hello, I'm Gianluca Rottura. I'm from In Vino Veritas on Manhattan's Upper East Side. It's a wine store, supposedly the first one to open up after Prohibition. We specialize in Italian wines, but we carry wines from all over the world. You can check out my book, Wine Made Easy. It's updated second edition. You can find it on Amazon, on Walmart, on Barnes and Nobles. It's a very easy school workbook approach to wine. It's the easiest way to learn wine and retain all the information. You can learn wine in no time. You can match wine and food like a pro. And of course, you can impress your wine snob friends.
What's up, everybody? This is the Growing Up Italian podcast. And today we have special guest Gianluca Rottura.
How are you?
Author, entrepreneur, business owner, wine connoisseur.
Thank you.
Does that sound about right to you?
I humbly say it's all true.
Exactly. When I introduce certain guests, I don't like just saying author. Meanwhile, you own a wine store, you wrote a wine book, you love wine, and your book is all about teaching people about wine.
Right.
Like on the title here, it says, learn wine in no time, match wine and food like a pro, impress your wine snob friends. I could never relate to something more than that.
No, thank you. That was the intention. I originally wrote the book long time ago in 2002 when things were completely different. I published it in 2004. I was a kid really when I did it because I've been in the business for so long. But the reason why I made it look that way with that school workbook look and that kind of legal pad look is because I wanted to have that approach that when you're in class, you're taking down notes, you're jotting notes, because that's the way you retain information. I used to look at all these wine books, I liked them, but they were very boring. They're very big and they just went on and on and on.
Actually, I actually want to say a quick story. So when my mom got laid off from her job in the city, and we opened a wine store right next door to my sandwich shop, and I basically like forced my way in there to work there for 3 years. So in the beginning, I remember my dad's best friend, who's a lawyer, owned a wine store also. He's an entrepreneur, owned a wine store, and he practices law, right? So he invites me over his house. He's cutting up some Parmigiano Reggiano, right? And we're drinking wine, whatever. I was a little underage at the time, 19.
That's okay.
Drinking wine, but we're Italian, so we drink wine from
all the time.
Well, yeah. So then he hands me a book, wine book for dummies, like this.
Yeah.
And I kind of like just skimmed through it, and I basically learned a lot about wine. Like I think I know a good amount for the average person, but wine's a very particular thing. Like people go to school for years and years to be sommeliers, and it's like some people could taste the wine and say, this is a 2006 from Montepulciano, so it's kind of crazy to me, because it's like when I drink wine, it's like maybe I'll put a little Sprite in it.
That's my wife,
easier to drink.
My wife doesn't drink alcohol. She'll have like a Moscato just for the holidays. And I have no hair, and she's a hairdresser. Yeah. So we don't take our work home. So me and you are in the same company. But, what we're talking about, so the people who can detect which year a wine is, those are the master sommeliers. There's only 10 or 15 in the country or something like that. There's very little. Yeah, those people who can tell you, oh, this came from this vineyard in this year, there's only a few of those. Sommeliers, obviously, there's, who knows, hundreds of thousands.
I was like 18 years old learning how to even drink wine. How you have to turn it and watch the legs around the cup. Yeah. And then I'm going to show everybody like a little demographic. Go like this, then you smell it. When you drink it, you're supposed to like make it, the air go through your teeth.
Draw in some, make a slurping noise.
So
and the thing that I would like
to someone that never heard about it, it looks crazy though.
No, it does. Well, it's funny because the things you're mentioning, sometimes that could be kind of scary to people. And so they're very hesitant to get in. So the people, they say, oh, I don't know what year this is. And I tell them it doesn't matter. To know what year a wine is without looking at it is very, very hard. So I tell people, that's going to stop you from enjoying it. Just find out what you like, but more importantly, find out why you like something. It's the same thing with anything, relationships or really anything, any hobby. Find out why you like it. And you say, I like this wine because it's whatever, light bodied, it has a good acidity, and I like it because it goes very well with poultry, and I eat poultry every day. So boom, your thing, and the way to do that is really just trying as much wine as possible, and responsibly, obviously.
So what's your favorite kind of wine?
Oh, so many types. And I'm not saying this because I'm speaking to growing up Italian. I'm not saying this because I am Italian, but it's clearly Italian wine, and I don't know if you face this, preaching about the beauties of Italy. Sometimes some people are like, oh, you think Italy's number one. I say, listen, we're the worst when it comes to computers, bureaucracy, corruption, being on time. But when it comes to these things, I think we're pretty much.
When it comes to food, we're pretty good.
Food and wine and clothes and car. Listen, we're number one. That's just the way it is,
Yeah.
We're not golf and lacrosse people, but with wine for sure. And obviously French are great, but I love Italian because in terms of numerically speaking, quantitatively speaking, you cannot compare. The closest second would be France, and they're miles away in terms of quantity.
What about Spanish wine? You like Spanish wine?
Oh, I
Riojas.
Love them as well. Yeah, but we specialize in Italian wines at our store, so we are biased. But it's just the depth of it. There are 2,000 grapes in Italy. Not some of them are clones. Not all of them are made for wine. But just to give you an idea of how deep the wine, the history of wine and the varieties of wine are in Italy.
Yeah, wine goes back to before Christ.
Yep.
So wine's been around forever. But should we do like a little explanation of Italian wines? I think that would be kind of cool to have on Growing Up Italian, because we could go so many ways with this convo here. We could talk about Malbecs from Argentina, Mendoza,
right.
I feel like Malbecs are probably the most popular wine in my store.
Absolutely.
And then of course, like summertime, the rosés, everybody's going crazy for the rosés. But being that this is Growing Up Italian, and I want all of our followers to really engage in this episode, and you have a great section in this book. I saw it was like in the 70s where you have a bunch of Italian stuff, like the whole breakdown. So you have like the regions broken down where they make wine, the north, the south, central islands. But just for everybody that's listening, I really recommend this book. It's a must-have.
Thank you. Yeah, the maps are hand-drawn.
Especially if you're curious about learning about wine.
Yes.
I've never seen a wine book with so much stuff. Like you're giving us just straight to the point. Like a lot of stuff is too much,
Yes. And by the way, there are many wines I had to leave out. For instance, there's some wines that you'll never encounter. I overdid it with the Italy section, of course. You can't blame me. But there's some wines I just didn't mention because you'll never hear of them, you'll never find them. But yeah, you're right.
There's also a lot of wines that nobody are really good and nobody shows love, like Aglianico. Is that how you pronounce it?
Aglianico, yes, that's a great wine from our area, the Campania.
Exactly. So it's like we know about. I feel like I knew about that because from Avellino, they make a great Aglianico. So,
and the people are very. Some of my favorite people in Italy come from Avellino. They're very gentle. They're very sweet. They've been through a lot. They had 40 years ago. They had double earthquakes. Very great people, but that kind of perseverance and toughness, it comes through in the wine. For instance, speaking of Aglianico, it's a very famous red grape. The most famous representation of that wine would be Taurasi, which is like the Barolo of the South. And in fact, you said people don't know about it. Unfortunately, that's kind of true. So the way I introduce them, I tell them, do you like Barolo? Oh, I love Barolo. I said, good. Well, try the Barolo of the South. So you take.
So it's a little cheaper. It's a little cheaper too, usually.
A little cheaper.
Expensive.
Yeah. And it's a little different too, obviously, in its own right. So you take Barolo, but you kind of make it a little more rustic and dark and intense and funky, and you get that. And then, of course, the whites of our area of Campania, they're haunting. For instance, the famous three, Fiano di Avellino, Grego di Tuffa, and Falanghina are terrific. But then, of course, you have sparklings such as Asprinio, you have from our area. there's a great grape two great grapes that have been resuscitated by my friend Massimo Aloisi. He's got a winery in Caserta area, which borders Lazio, and he specializes in Palagrello Nero and Palagrello Bianco. They're like going extinct, and he saved them. A lot of winemakers in Italy are saving these once extinct, almost extinct grapes. So, and then you have wines of the Amalfi Coast. Those are different, but they really speak. They speak history. They speak soul. And you're right. People should
give us a little bit explanation of when we should be drinking certain wines for what dishes. So like, let's say, regular cavatelli, red sauce, with a little meat in it, like,
Oh, so many options. So, and of course I'm generalizing to make the matter short. But before I talk about the wines, people should know that all European wines, like French, Spanish, Italian, etc., they go by area. So people are used to buying Malbec because it's very popular in Argentina, but you usually almost would never see a wine classified by grape in Europe. So in Italy, if you were to see like Chianti is an area. It's mostly made with Sangiovese. So that gets a little hard for people to know because you have to know the areas and then know which grapes to do. But if you're doing Cavadelli, to narrow it down, to make it easier, I would just say, boom, let's just narrow it down to the south. Boom, let's make it Puglia and Campania. We already discussed Campania, for instance. So I would say Puglia. Great. You can get a Salice Salentino made with the famous Negro Amaro grape, or you can get a Primitivo if you want something a little more jammy and fruity.
Sweet, a little more sweet.
Yeah. And that goes great, of course. So because it has that fruitiness, if you're going to add any hot pepper, I would say it almost
kind of
demands
soothing. It's kind of soothing when you it's hot, so you wanna like calm them out a little bit.
Yes. Speaking of Puglia, the way I found out about you guys was through our mutual friend Rossella Rago from Cooking with Nonna.
Yeah.
And it actually
and I have a lot of mutual friends, man. You said like 10 people now.
I know.
And the most random people too, from here, there. Like
we were talking about John Seymour, the great sweet chick, Emperor. He's a great guy. Shout out to him from the old neighborhood.
He lives in Williamsburg. That's
yes. Yeah, no, he's great. So, but Rossella Rago, to make the long story short, and this is very good for you, but I would like to get this out. During I found out about you guys during the height of the pandemic. As we discussed before the show went on, unfortunately, my father passed away from it.
Sorry for your loss, man.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a brutal thing. I almost died from it too. That was a whole nightmare. But coming out of it, she sent me some links, and one of it was Growing Up Italian. And Growing Up Italian, the Pasta Queen, I know you know the Pasta Queen, and I forgot like two other ones, actually kept me comforted throughout that horrible pandemic. So I'd like to thank you guys because
you know it means a lot. I like that.
And usually when someone goes through a bad period, whatever they associate with that period, they don't want to do anything. But the pandemic is getting better, and I still am cheerful when I see you guys post because it puts me in a good mood. So I appreciate what you guys do.
Yeah, man. No, thank you. It's honestly it's been a crazy year, bro, to say the least. Like we kind of felt when this started, like people were going crazy in the house. So a lot of people like you were directly affected by what was going on. That you had the virus, your father got the virus, and then there was people that were just staying home and kind of like just had to, stay home to make things happen, right. So it's kind of like one side and the other. But what we noticed was like just to like spread awareness and all that kind of stuff. We even had a podcast about it, telling everybody to stay home, this, that. And just like through our content, we try to keep everybody together also, like just showing the good parts like of us, even though it's something horrible, like overcoming it by singing on balconies and especially in Italy. Here, if I try to sing on the balcony, they curse me out. But
it's like coming to America.
But like what I noticed a lot about the Americans is that when we were sharing the content of Italy, like in the pandemic, they loved it. Like they were like, "Wow, Italy's," and over here, it's like they were like, "Oh wow, like I can't believe this thing is here," because it kind of happened in Italy like 3 weeks ahead, I think.
About a month ahead,
So we kind of were aware of what was going on, and then when it came here, I was like, "Oh my God, are we gonna go do the same thing Italy went through, you know? So, but here was kind of a little different, you know?
Mhm.
In Italy, you cannot go anywhere unless you have a
Yeah.
piece of paper, you know, like,
Yeah. Oh, no, yeah. And they're actually, our zone isn't shut down again right now as we speak.
yeah, Campania is red.
Yep.
So,
Yep. I'm trying to convince my wife. She goes, "Oh, I want to see my family." I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't want to die." You know, like she wants to take a trip there this summer.
you gotta see, you know, because what about if you take a trip there and then you can't do anything?
That's what I tell her too. I'm going to be sitting in a house, and as is, you know, it's not quiet.
Yeah.
It's screaming. I was like, "Listen, I can't have 30 people screaming in a house. I can do that. You know, I'm not going to spend thousands of dollars. If I go to Italy, I want to go to Naples. I want to go to the Amalfi Coast.
Yeah.
What, you know, or else what's the point?"
To get
But
back on the book a little bit.
yeah.
So you said for cavatelli with a red sauce, you would choose that. Now for like a steak,
Oh, yeah.
what would you pick for like
Well,
steak Fiorentina?
Well, first of all, definitely Malbec from Argentina. Now, Malbec, just as a little reminder, it's originally from France. They either use it as a blending grape in Bordeaux, or in the southwest region of Cahors, it's the dominant grape. In Argentina, it does well, and you get a good softer, because it's a very dark kind of, it's like the Guinness of wine.
Yes.
And
I actually don't, for the record, I don't like Malbecs because they're too strong.
Yeah, well, that's interesting you say that. Most people, in the beginning, most people didn't like it, but I think a lot of the marketing and the fact that it's a great value, I think it changed people's minds. So yes, I do think a Malbec would go. But if we're sticking to Italy now, if you're talking about Bistecca Fiorentina, obviously, what grows together goes together. So Italian food and Italian wine have for so long, since the beginning of time, blended together. They were grown. They're married together. So there's a reason why. So you cannot just ignore the wines of that area. So it's a hefty steak. Obviously, the Bistecca Fiorentina would be a porterhouse cut, very thick, about 2 inches tall, 2 inches wide. Sorry, and you would want to do maybe a Brunello, or maybe something lighter than a Brunello, which is like a junior.
Barolo, or
You could also do Barolo, yeah.
Amarone.
You could do Amarone, yeah. Especially, it also depends. Are you going to have any sides with it? If you're having potatoes, something more hefty. Amarone is a very special wine from the Verona area, about an hour west of Venice. And I'm sure you know this, they dry the grapes for a few months. So they lose up about, let's say, 40% of the water. So you're essentially pressing semi-raisins as opposed to grapes. And the flavors in the semi-raisins are very concentrated. So it appears as if it's going to be something sweet, but it's actually not. It's almost like bittersweet. Amarone means bitter. And it's very pleasant, very powerful, strong alcohol wine. And it does go with a rich dish like a steak. So I would definitely would not recommend a white wine for a Bistecca Fiorentina.
So now we got to go into fish then.
Of course, yes.
When you're eating fish, do you go white, rosé?
Generally speaking, I would do either white or rosé. There are some reds to get this out of the way. If you were going to have red with seafood, the ones that I would do, either a Pinot Noir goes very well.
Yeah, very light. That's very light too.
Yeah, very light. A Spätburgunder, which is the same thing but from Germany, or you can do from the Trentino Alto Adige area in Italy. It's called Schiava. Schiava is very light, and that could go well with that. Of course, if you're doing rosé, from where my father's from, a great Ciro Rosado would go excellent with that. Etna Rosso rosé very well. Of course, we're in Sicily now, so you can't help but ignore Inzolia. That's a great seafood wine. Grillo and Cadarato. Or going back to Campania with those great whites, Greco, Falanghina.
Yeah, Greco.
Or
Fiamma. Tufos, I have like two different ones too in my shop. And some people like don't know about, because like if you go to a random place that you'll never see that. You'll see a Pinot Grigio or a Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, but you'll never see a Greco di Tufo.
You know? I don't know why. It's so fantastic. I don't know why you wouldn't carry it.
I know.
You know?
I just think there's not a lot, like a lot of stores don't sell. I'm sure your store sells it, my store sells it, but in general.
If I can ask, which ones do you carry?
What's the name? I know by the label.
Okay. Yeah, because I have some friends who make wine. I hate when people try to come in the store and sell me stuff. So I'm not trying to sell you stuff, because you always get people.
You get all those stragglers, right?
Yeah, it's stray cats. They come in with the handbag. My brother, I run the store with my brother. He does most of the buying, so he hates dealing with that. But yeah, I got some great friends who produce outstanding wine.
You gotta look for my brother. Sorry.
Yeah, I do that all the time. He actually gives a different name. I won't say it online, when people call 25 years ago, 24 years ago, in a few weeks, it'll be 24 years. He came up with this funny name that's definitely not Italian. So when people call and ask that person, we know it's spam automatically. We know it's a scam, you know. So instead of Sabino, tell people your name is like, whatever, Timothy.
I really should. My name is Timothy.
Yeah. So people say Timothy, be like, nah, no Timothy, hang up.
Yeah.
You know?
That's funny though, man. That's actually a good idea. I like.
Yeah.
All right. So let's say a nice chicken dish, like let's say a baked chicken or something. What are you usually pairing with that?
Baked chicken. Well, what I would ask is how is it cooked and what is in it. So
Let's
for instance,
say a little balsamic reduction, right?
okay.
A little
So
baked potatoes.
just as a way to get people knowing. So when people come into my store, the first thing I do, I acknowledge them, hello, I leave them alone. And then after a few minutes, I said, do you need any help? If they need any help, what we like to do, are you looking for wine? If they say yes, I usually say with food or without food. Now I did the Italian American podcast.
Right, so wait, let's
Yeah.
let's do the whole thing. All right. I'm gonna be the customer and you're gonna be. Hello, how are you?
How are you? I'm gonna leave you alone now for 2 minutes.
Yeah, no, actually, what do you recommend? I'm looking for a bottle of wine.
Well, are you looking for something with food or without food?
With food. I'm making chicken
Uh-huh.
in the oven with a balsamic reduction, miniature potatoes, and grilled asparagus.
Oh, awesome. Okay. What do you like and don't like?
I usually like something light-bodied, easy to drink.
Okay. And what around how much? 10, 15, 20?
Whatever. No, price does not matter for me. This is where you got to upsell, by the way. For everybody that's an entrepreneur, when they say, yeah, it doesn't matter, you got to hit them with a $25, $30 bottle.
So what I would say now is, I would say the chicken, the potatoes definitely gives you a lot of options. The asparagus, like artichokes, is going to narrow down your options because they have a chemical in them which actually makes wine taste kind of weird, metallic, and kind of like sweet in a weird way. So
that's kind of, I could tell like asparagus does something to the body because whenever I eat it, yeah, it smells when I pee for a week, So I always wondered why, but you're clearly more knowledgeable about wine than me. I mean, I've only been in the business for like 2 years, 3 years. But I can tell this is something you know.
Well, asparagus and artichokes, which are very big in Italy, they do have something, and they do make wine taste a certain way. So what I would say is, speaking of piss, Sauvignon Blanc would go well. And one of the terms people use to describe the flavors of Sauvignon Blanc is cat piss, in a good way. I never had cat piss, but yeah. And on my social media page, I put a picture of a cat taking a piss, and the cat is saying, "I love Sauvignon Blanc." But so I would do that. Of course, I would say Riesling. Now that kind of freaks people out because they think all Riesling is sweet, and that's not true. There are dry Rieslings. There are Rieslings with some sweetness.
Yeah, there's two different kinds of.
Yeah, and then there's Rieslings with even more sweetness, and then there's dessert Rieslings. But so I would say, that's always an option for sure. And Rieslings are great because they have low alcohol, so it pairs well with food, and they have that sweetness, and they have a good acidity which clings to the food. So I would definitely recommend either Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand, preferably because it's a little more fruit forward, or a Riesling. If not, you can recommend a Vouvray. Or
I remember, it's crazy when you're saying these wines. I'm like, I haven't heard these in so long. These are really wines you only know if you like. I feel like you work and sell it, or if you're really like enthusiast.
Yes, absolutely. And then for instance, what I like to do is I always offer different. Speaking of prices, so for instance, Vouvray, which is from France, that's made from the Chenin Blanc grape. I can recommend an inexpensive Chenin Blanc from, say, South Africa or California. We have a great one that's Chenin Blanc blended with Viognier, which is a French grape, which will also go well with that dish. Very apricot-y, peachy kind of flavors. That would go very well with that.
Oh man, that's great.
Oh, you didn't ask the most important dish.
What was the most important?
So, and you might know this guy who sells it. So,
because I was gonna ask you next. Go ahead, say your point, and I have one more question.
What's the most popular food in the world?
Cheese.
Well, bread. Yeah, well, not food. Sorry, dish. Let's say like our thing to eat, all over the world.
Pizza.
Yes. So, from our area, we were like 15 years ago, we were one of the first people to carry, that I know of, this wine. In Vino Veritas is a great wine store on East 74th Street and First Avenue on Manhattan's Upper East Side. The address is 1375 First Avenue. Please come visit us for a personalized, tailored experience. We will have wines for every budget and every taste, whether you're eating or not, although you should be eating. And we guarantee that we will build relationships with our customers the same way we build relationships with each and every wine producer and wine importer we deal with, because it's the relationships that matters. That's why we specialize in Italian wines, because that's what made Italy so great. Family, culture, the piazza. I have a blog called Piazza Life. Check it out. And I can't wait to see you guys. As for Gianluca, as for my brother Bruno, as for Evan or Irving, we're all there, and we can't wait to help you. I just did it on Amalfi Coast Limoncello video. I use Instagram for the exact opposite purposes. I make like long informational videos, which you're not supposed to. But so he's also got Caravaggio restaurants. His other brothers, they have San Pietro restaurant, and that specializes just in Salerno cooking. They're all between 5th and Madison Avenue, and they're all like the very best of Italian food. And what was I talking about? Yeah, we're talking about. I know this guy Franco Benghazi because I used to hang out with him when he used to sell wine at the restaurant. I used to go to, when Italy used to come and play soccer games, we would go to Connecticut, wherever. So I knew this guy. Anyway, and we carry this wine called Gragnano, and it's a red sparkling wine. And in fact, in and around Naples, usually you don't have wine with pizza. You have something sparkling, whether Coca-Cola.
People always have beer
or beer, or this sparkling red wine, Gragnano. So for like 15 years, we were proud to have been, not only to sell this wine from our area, but to have been one of the few retail places anywhere in the world to sell this wine. And it's a red sparkling wine. And when people try it, they flip out because it tastes like a more fun Lambrusco, like a dry Lambrusco, but kind of fruity. And when the Neapolitan pizza explosion happened, shout out to my friends Rosario and Roberto. They started Ceste. They went their own ways.
I know Roberto.
You know, yeah, great. They're both great guys. Yeah. And actually, Motorino by you in Williamsburg, when they opened up, and then they opened up on 12th Street where Una Pizza Napoletana was, everyone's like, where do you get this Gragnano? They would send everybody to my store because nobody carried it.
Yeah,
it's a great wine. It goes with not just with pizza, but salumi and cheese and stuff like that. Look into it because it's called Cantina Federiciana Gragnano. You're gonna want to get an IV of this shit because it's unbelievable.
No, I'm definitely gonna check it out. Listen, man, you have like great energy, and I could tell you're like so full of wisdom when it comes to wine. We definitely gotta do like a part 2 to this.
If you want, thank you. If you want to do part 2 about Neapolitan clothing, because I'm very vain when it comes to clothing. I'm wearing a t-shirt now because it's pandemic, or food, forget it. Like as sick as I am about wine, I'm about food.
Yeah.
So think about those things. I would love to.
I'm gonna stop the recording, but I'm gonna tell you something I think you would like. Everybody, thank you all for tuning in. We'll talk soon. Ciao.